I'm going to tell you a little children's story. Nothing is ever as it seems to be. Last night I was reminded of, since we are here in Kansas, of the story of the Wizard of Oz. And how many know the story of the Wizard of Oz? Nothing is ever as it seems to be.
That's right.
Dorothy, as we know, was a young girl who got caught in a tornado in the twister, lands in a foreign land. Dorothy, along her way to discover the truth, runs across a scarecrow. When the gentleman that wrote the story of the Wizard of Oz, and you may not know this because this story turned out to be a very famous children's story that went on for generations. The scarecrow actually represented the farmers of America. The entire story of the Wizard of Oz was written as a political satire to actually influence Americans of what was going on in the time period. It was not about a children's story. Then she decides to not focus completely on her goal, and she decides to stop and help the scarecrow. Then the next along her way, she runs across whom? The Tin Man. The Tin Man represented the factory workers, all about their business with no heart. Then who does she run across next? The Cowardly Lion that represented the politicians of the day, according to the author of the story. Now we all look at it as a children's story, right? But that's not what the author intended at all. The yellow brick road that Dorothy followed represented the yellow that backed the dollar at that time period, and how they were trying to vote whether or not they should have gold representing backing the dollar or whether they should switch to silver. In the original story, Dorothy's shoes were not ruby red. The television did that so that you could see them better. They were actually the color silver.
Yep.
And what the author was wanting Americans of the time period to do, to realize that the gold that backed the dollar, her yellow brick road, which led to the Wizard of Oz, who actually had no power at all in the story and was a fake and a phony, but that she possessed the power all along with her silver shoes to reach her goal and get back home. Now, did anyone have any idea that's what the story of the Wizard of Oz meant? No. Because for one thing, we didn't grow up in the time period that that was taking place, and it became such a popular children's story that we just show it to our children and along the way. But I learned two things from that. Number one, not everything is as it seems. And number two, if Dorothy would have focused on her goal of just reaching the Wizard of Oz, what happened in the end? She was disappointed, right? But she stomped along the way and reached out to help others to reach their goal as well. And so I say to you this morning, oftentimes our problems, as the pastor was talking about, look just monumentous. They look very big, and yet when we stop to start reaching out and helping others, our problems don't seem quite as big as they used to. And God makes sure, in the end, Dorothy's problems were solved. God makes sure that our problems are always met as we stop and reach out and help others.
Yes. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you.
Hallelujah.
It reminds me to clip my feet together 3 times and say, "There's no place like home." There's no place like home.